Welcome to the Gen X Reboot interview series. In this segment, we're diving deep into the life experiences and wisdom of one of our awesome community members, Jolene Rosa. We'll be exploring her personal story of growth, discussing the unique challenges and opportunities faced by Gen Xers, and sharing valuable insights she's learned along the way. So sit back, relax, and get ready for some engaging and thought-provoking conversation that I believe will leave you feeling more connected, motivated, and ready to embrace your own Gen X reboot. Let's get started. Hey there, Jolene.
Good morning, Pete, or good afternoon, Pete. How are you?
I'm doing really good. We'll just go ahead and get started. Tell us your story. Introduce us to you.
Oh, that sounds great. My name is Jolene Rosa. I am a Michigan native who is now living in Evergreen, Colorado. My husband and I moved out here in 2019. I currently work down in Denver for a large commercial interiors company as the vice president of marketing. And in our free time, my husband and I like to train for triathlons, race triathlons, hike the mountains, and we're always entertaining a lot of visitors.
That's awesome. So,
Ah,
so what, you said you moved in 2019, so that was right before the pandemic hit us.
it was. It was right before COVID. And I'll tell you, Colorado was a pretty great place to be during the pandemic. We're up in the mountains. We could get out. We could still hike. We took a little bit of a incognito road trip and just stayed off grid for a week. And yeah, during that time, I worked remote. I started writing a book. Actually, COVID for us turned out pretty well as far as where we were located. It was hard not seeing family back in Michigan, but yeah, it was definitely a great place to be.
Yeah. So was there a lot of freedom allowed? Because we as well did an incognito trip across the country that was going to
Yes.
be it was going to be 2 weeks. It ended up being almost 12 months. But 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 when we went to our first stop was down in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and so we went to the trails to hike in Smoky Mountain National Park, and they had yellow tape at the trailheads, and they were giving people tickets who were outside hiking. Did that
Okay.
happen in Colorado?
Not so much. Some of the busier trails, if you're a little closer to Denver, what we did is we actually this is kind of a funny story. We went to the local car dealership or rental dealership. We rented a minivan. We took out all the seats, threw our dog in, some sleeping bags, and all of our food for a week, and we just explored all of Colorado. We just hit all the little towns, everything we needed that was in the van. We cooked outside, we camped, we hiked in places where there were really no people, so we didn't experience as much of that. And then there were actually a few national parks open, like the Sand Dunes National Park was wide open because it's so vast that you really aren't in close proximity to anyone. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. We still have great memories of that trip. We probably took a Dodge Caravan where no Dodge Caravan should ever go. But we have a lot of great memories.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you said when you did it, you kind of did an incognito trip and went off the radar. What was the biggest thing that drove you to want to do it incognito and go under the radar?
Sure. I mean, we were just starting to have all the mandates, and everyone was masking up. We were a little nervous about travels just because there were so many stories of certain towns that wouldn't even let you come into their town if you didn't live there. So people who were trying to escape to their vacation homes couldn't do that. So we just felt like, you know what, we're just gonna hang out on the outskirts and go off grid, and it was a terrific trip.
Yeah.
We can't stop talking about it even this many years later. We still laugh at what we were doing and where we were going. And we were in some pretty sketchy areas where we saw some abandoned vehicles, and I hope that's not us. We took a caravan across a couple of rivers to get to where
Wow.
we were going, but it was incredible.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you find yourself when people bring up the pandemic in conversation and you start smiling, do you find yourself trying to put a frown on your face so
Ah,
you act a little bit more sad than you are?
there were a lot of tragedies that came out of that, and I am very sad for those things. But I guess I was really fortunate that we could find the bright side in some of it, and we were able to do those things and share in those experiences. So, Yeah, it is a little tough to not smile when I think of those good memories, but I know not everyone had them.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, I think when we went on our trip, it was a lot of the social pressure of what are people going to think that we're
Sure.
not still hiding underneath our bed in our house, you know, because
Yes,
for the
yes,
first 2 months we didn't do anything. We were very compliant. And then we started to think about it and it's like, wait a minute, if you're outdoors,
yeah,
you're going to be
yeah,
okay.
you're
You're
good.
living in a van instead of a house. But yeah,
Exactly.
and then that same guilt kind of came with me and still follows me around when I think about the positive or talk about the positive aspects of the pandemic. But it put all of us in the exact same circumstances, and all of us got to not only know ourselves and the people that we are close to better, but I think it really let us draw a complete different understanding of the world and the rules in which we operate within them. And that's not a bad thing to reevaluate, I don't think.
No, I do try to focus on the positives that came out. Yes, it was difficult. It was challenging. There were a lot of heartbreaks, but wow, did we ever change the way we think, the way we work, where we work? I've learned so much. I mean, the technology that we've really had to plug into and get used to, and in all of our jobs. And so I think it opened up also a lot of doors and possibilities for many people.
Yeah, it was super cool. I was thinking about now. I remember when I interviewed you back at Mindscape a long time ago, and then I remember I ran into you one other time when I think I was out hiking, and you and your
Yeah.
husband were in a run. It was down right around Monroe and 3 Mile at that intersection. I always remember where I was when I talk to people, but but yeah, that I don't know how long ago that was, but that seems like it was a really long time ago.
It was many years. Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
But you two do a lot of fun and adventurous stuff related to health activities and stuff. Can you share some of that, please?
Absolutely. So, my husband and I are both avid triathletes. That is how we met. We love the running, the variety, the biking, the swimming. We also love to hike. We love to road bike, mountain bike, anything that takes us outdoors. We love to do it. We are both slightly competitive, maybe a little more than slightly. So we both really like to race. But I mean, we came out here for more than that. We want to experience some adventure. So, yes, we took the minivan trip, but that was just one of many. We're always out exploring. There's so many trails, just even outside of our backyard. Colorado, I believe, is like 60% public land, which is amazing. So you can't really throw a stick up in the air without landing on a trail. So I love all the visitors that come and stay with us. We're taking them on their first big hikes up a 14er. We're helping them prepare with backpacks and nutrition and how to manage the altitude. So I love that. And then my husband is from Brazil, so we are often adventuring down to Brazil to see his family, and that's
Oh,
awesome.
that has to be cool.
Yeah, it's wonderful to experience a different culture and also really get ingrained. When you're with the locals, you do what the locals do. So it's different than showing up and staying at an all-inclusive and being very protected. You're really out there. We're hiring tour guides. We're checking things out that other people may not experience. And then my husband really wants to take me to the jungle. So that's on our bucket list.
Oh, that's awesome. So, how long did it take you to get accustomed to the altitude out there?
It took quite a while. We're in Evergreen. We live at about 7,500 feet. I say, we still run out of breath taking our garbage out to the road. We have a pretty steep driveway. Training here was difficult. I mean, a simple 3 mile run in Michigan out here, I was stopping a couple of times just to catch my breath.
Wow.
So it was challenging, but I will say, with the altitude and all of the training that we do and the hiking the mountains, we head back to Michigan, and I feel like Wonder Woman. I feel like I can run for forever. So that's a great bonus. I know a lot of athletes come out here to specifically train in the altitude just so they can feel better for other races. So we experience that, and we love training with everyone.
That's cool. I went out there. Amanda and I brought our kids out, and we
Ah,
rented a cabin right at the base of Pikes Peak. Literally, you'd walk out of our driveway, take about 50 steps, and you're staring at the
sure.
sign that you drive underneath.
Yeah.
and I was such a baby. I could not, it was like the first day I was like, I need to lay down. I need to lay down. Oh, I have a headache. Oh, I'm feeling dizzy. And it was
It's a
so
real
weird.
thing, and it's kind of scary because we experience quite a few people that are, you know, hiking. They might have a bottle of water. They're really not prepared. People don't always think about the challenges if they've never experienced that. So altitude is a thing. Altitude sickness is a thing. We've had to take people down because they're just not feeling well and they need to get to a lower elevation. Or I've, you know, I say sometimes I'm a pharmacist and I'm dispensing things like electrolyte pills and ibuprofen to people that are on the trail just so they can feel better.
Yeah, I can. So what was the first 14er that you did, and what
Ah,
was that experience like?
well, I think that's a really good segue into my story
Oh,
because I
cool.
would say that the 14er is probably my biggest life change in my 40s. So yeah, I'm going to backtrack back to when I was young because my story is like a jungle gym. It kind of goes all over the place and lots of ups and downs and sideways. But yeah, I mean, I was raised in Michigan in a small town, large Christian family, about an hour north of Grand Rapids. I was child number 6 of 7. We lived in a small 3-bedroom house with 1 bathroom and 1 television. So we were outside a lot. My mom was always kicking us outside to go play because, you know, 7 children in one house is it's a little rowdy. But we loved it. I mean, I would say that for the most part we had a pretty happy childhood. We played together, we get to know each other really well, and even to this day my siblings and I are all still really close. So that's amazing. um we were a pretty poor family. I would say we lived maybe just above the poverty line, sometimes dipping below it. But I didn't know that when I was younger. So my mom and my dad never talked about it. Like, they were very proud people. We always made do, but I knew if I wanted anything special, I was going to have to work for it. So work ethic, that was instilled pretty early. I would pick up jobs either at the local camp in the summer, or as a teenager, I'd babysit my nieces and nephews so I could buy some new clothes for school and try to look fashionable with everyone. Spent a lot of time, like I said, outdoors, climbing trees, playing in the creek. And then pretty much my whole family, we all got into sports early. That was something that my parents really did push on us, was getting outdoors, enjoying sports, being a kid, you know, having a lot of fun, trying not to work too much too soon. They lived very simply, but they had a pretty happy life.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
It is
Um,
amazing. It's amazing when you realize that money is not that big of a contributing factor to happiness.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think our parents really modeled that. So that was, it was humbling to see, and I think it's taught us all to be pretty scrappy, which is not a bad thing. But where things did go a little south, my sophomore year of high school, our millage failed and we lost all of our sports. So
Oh,
you have all of these high school kids attending school from 9 a.m. to maybe 2:30, and now their parents are working. We have nothing to do, and this is the age where we all started falling into trouble. Absence of sports and practice. Now we're dabbling in alcohol, cigarettes, some drugs. Things really took a turn, I would say, that year.
hmm.
So getting into that and having way too much time on my hands. On my 17th birthday, I found out I was pregnant. And I'm just going to stop here for a second to let that sink
Okay.
in, because how many 17-year-olds do you know right now? And to even, I mean, I look at 17-year-olds and I think, you know, they're children. They're children. I was a child. So, you know, what are they going to do with their life? What was I going to do with my life? I didn't know. And it was scary. And I'm in a Christian family. It's something that was shameful, and also that we had to fix our mistakes. So at 17, I was finding myself getting married. It was something that my mother proposed that we do. It would cover up our sins, and I didn't really know any better, so I adopted her beliefs. I didn't have any of my own. And I would say, yeah, that moment permanently shaped the trajectory of my life. So knowing my parents were simple, they didn't set high expectations for education, for career. Since they lived simply and that was good enough for them, it was good enough for us. But I knew I wanted more. I think we all wanted more. Growing up, knowing that you're pretty poor and you don't have a lot, we all looked at our lives saying, I think I want a little bit more out of it. So in my heart, getting pregnant wasn't going to make me a statistic. I wanted a career. So both my husband and I went to college with a baby in tow. We didn't sleep much, but we did it. There were, many mornings where I'm getting up at 5 a.m. and just to find like tiny little handprints and drawings all over my artwork that I needed to take in for a presentation that day. And you're almost in tears, like, what am I going to do now? But we made it work. We got through school. We had very supportive parents, which was wonderful, that helped take care of our child so that we could get an education.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it was awesome. I'm a big proponent of education. It's something that I have instilled in both of my children. I'm like, I don't care what you do, but just gain a skill, do something, get an education. It will take you everywhere you want to go in life. There's just so many more doors that will open if you do that. So that's something that I really push, especially for young moms, teen moms, get an education. There are so many ways to do it. So it will help you really get a leg up in life and not get stuck. So
yeah, that's one thing that when I started, I went to college for a very short period of time. I don't even I mean, mentally, I don't think I ever even enrolled, but I was there for like a year. And that's one thing, like, even though things went okay, there was always that part in the back of my mind that said, you didn't go to school, like you're supposed to go to school. And so that embedded a little bit of insecurity. And
sure.
I think it's one thing that would have helped me avoid a lot of pains and missteps along the way if I would have just stayed focused,
Yeah.
But I do believe also that education is a very important thing. And that is not where I've been my entire career, but I definitely understand it now.
Yeah,
So.
definitely. So I mean, my husband and I, we lived through a lot of celebrations and also many heartaches. We had two amazing children. We lost a pregnancy along the way. We bought homes, we moved to Holland, then we moved to Grand Rapids. We were just moving along, achieving life as we thought we should, as we were taught. You get your house, your 2.4 kids, your dog, and you figure it out. And then one day you're like, what am I doing? So, living life as we should. We also had a really big heartbreak that life became really heavy. We lost my husband's sister to suicide when she was 27, and it really rocked the foundation of our family.
Yeah.
I would say that's probably around 1998. She was his only sibling, and now we were the only immediate family that his parents had. So I feel like in many ways, he took the burden of her death and trying to hold the family together on himself, and never really processed the emotions through it. I mean, we were so young. We were in our 20s. We had two children. We had just bought a house. We didn't know anything about grief counseling or processing death. So you just kind of move on and deal with the ramifications as they come along. But, unfortunately, if you're not dealing with it, then it's going to deal with you. So I feel like that pivotal moment is probably the first of many that drove us apart. We weren't great communicators either. We didn't want to ruffle each other's feathers, but we would have big blowouts instead because we bottled a little bit too much, just because we really didn't have those skills. Getting married so young, we weren't taught that. We didn't grow up learning that. I developed some high anxiety. I saw several counselors. I was medicated for several years and also put on a lot of weight while I was doing that. I just didn't really know how to deal with life anymore. So fast forward to 2005, I'm miserable. I really want to lose weight. I'm, feeling the weight of all the decisions of our whole life and everything that's happened to us. And I crack. I mean, I really just don't know what to do with my life anymore. I felt like I couldn't carry the burden anymore. The weight of the world's coming down on me. So I'm weaning off my medication because I know that I'm consistently gaining weight, and I knew I wasn't healthy anymore. But that made me feel even more anxiety because I didn't know how to manage it at that time. So I turned to alcohol. I picked up smoking again. And then I left my husband and we separated for 6 months. And then during that 6 months, I'm like, I need to get my shit together. I'm kind of falling apart. I felt like everything was my fault. I internalized all of it and took the blame for it because I was the one who left. And it was really difficult because, my daughter was 13 at the time. My son was 8. They had no idea what was going on. Why is mom having all these issues? Why is she struggling like this? I was severely judged by a lot of members of my family, the church. I felt like I brought shame to everyone. I let my husband down, my children down, my family down, the church. I had so much guilt and shame, and I couldn't take it. But I had one support person, and that was my older sister. And she let me live with her for a while, until I could get an apartment. But she was really my only saving grace. She was the only one that really understood what was going on. And so I still talk to her to this day. We have a weekly check-in with each other. We're each other's accountability partners, but she was the one that had my back. And she took a lot of heat too. She fielded a lot of phone calls that
Yeah.
were supposed to come to me, which was wonderful. But I was at my lowest. I needed to make some drastic changes. And I start working with a counselor that is amazing. And I'm telling him about my anxiety, that I was diagnosed with this generalized anxiety. And after several sessions of counseling, he's like, "Do you think you have this?" And I said, "No, I don't." I said, "I'm anxious, but I really don't think I have like this generalized anxiety." And as we're talking through things, he said, "I don't either." He said, "I'll be honest, I think you have very specific anxiety, and that anxiety is your husband." So it was another like defining moment of, okay, we either need to fix our relationship to come back together, or we need to move apart. And also through that counseling, I worked through a lot of like childhood trauma, abuse that had happened, things that I didn't know were shaping my life that I hadn't dealt with, and really coming to understand, yeah, again, if you don't deal with it, it's going to deal with you. And this is what it brought me to, was this point. So we came back together for 5 years. We learned how to communicate, which was great. And in some ways, like I felt amazing because I knew how to communicate better. But then, on the other hand, it started causing more problems because I'm not holding back my feelings anymore and any of my goals in life. So what we came to after counseling literally for 5 years is that we're very misaligned on our goals. And that misalignment was making us pretty miserable. If one of us was happy and achieving, the other one was miserable. So I took that into my marriage now, just making sure, like, are we aligned? Are we, we check in with each other. Are we aligned on this? And I'll talk about that in a minute. But I really felt like, even though we had gone through some marriage counseling, because we were so young, we didn't know what we wanted to do or what we were going to be when we got older. So that misalignment really drove us apart. Yeah. So we end up getting a divorce in 2010, and now we're each single parents and trying to figure this out. Our daughter's now 18. Our son is 13. They understand better what's going on. It took them a while, but they were very encouraging once they understood and saw us living better lives
Right
afterwards. So this is, I guess, where I feel like it starts to get good, and I build up to my first reboot. I'm out exploring new places, new jobs, homes, people. I really feel like I started that quest at about 36 to figure out my life. I tried corporate life for a while and wasn't feeling great about the fit. And I had this mentality that like, oh, you can either have money or freedom, but you can't have both. And I feel like that's a very limiting belief. But it is something that I had. So I quit my corporate job, picked up freelancing, and because I wasn't making enough money, I picked up 2 more part-time jobs. So I was freelancing graphic design, I was working at a winery, I was running dogs, like I was loving the freedom, but I was always broke. But so I was like, around the age of 40, I was like, I'm gonna make this bucket list and I'm just gonna start doing stuff. Like I want to live an epic life. What I'm doing right now isn't that epic. Like I went out for this quest and I'm really not doing it. So now I need to buckle down and to do it. So I make this crazy bucket list for my 40th birthday and I publish it on Facebook and all my friends are like, what are you doing? And I'm not old. I feel great. I'm going to start living like I'm really going to go for it. So I put this bucket list together of all these things I wanted to do in 12 months. And I feel like that 40th year really was another pivotal point that changed my whole life. I was tired of living small. I wanted to do bigger things. So I started working on what job do I want next. I wanted to complete a half Ironman. And then that's when I took my daughter to Colorado and we hiked Long's Peak. And that was our first 14er.
Awesome.
And that changed my life. The 14er changed my life. There's nothing more humbling than staring down a 1,000 foot peak. It puts your whole life into perspective. You're just like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And there was just so much freedom, but so much clarity in that moment, standing there, that I wanted to do more of it. I wanted that feeling. I wanted that freedom. And I think that's ultimately what brought us here. But what was happening, I didn't know this is where I would end up, honestly. But what was happening is I'm working through this bucket list, doing my own thing. I'm living my life. I'm doing epic shit. And I meet this guy named Jolene Rosa. And he thinks my adventures are pretty cool. And we start dating and I'm thinking like, well, like this guy has an amazing life. I'm not up to his caliber. Like he came over as an exchange student. He's from Brazil. He has explored the jungles. He is this elite triathlete. Like he's all these things. He feels a little too perfect for me, quite frankly. And I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if I wanted to date him. He made me uncomfortable. I was feeling a little insecure about the whole thing. And my sister, the sister that I check in with, gave me a little bit of encouragement. She said, I actually know him from when I worked back in a bike shop many moons ago. And I really think you should give it a shot. Like he's a super nice guy. And I was like, I don't know. Like I look at my life and I'm like, this is my life. All these mistakes, all of the, like, I have older children, all these things, like I really felt like that shaped me. And I felt shame a lot. And I felt shame from other people because if I would tell them my age and how old my daughter was, they were like, oh my gosh, you were a baby, and it would instantly make me feel shame. And I really, I hated that my whole life. And I'm like, I celebrate her. She's amazing. I mean, she hiked up my first 14er with me. She's an amazing daughter. And I really feel like, those are my mistakes to own, but nothing is wasted. Like all of those things can be used in the future. And so I kind of poured my life out to him and my insecurities and what was going on. And he was saying he felt the same. And my friends are like, you finally found somebody who can live up to like the expectations in the life you want. Like you really need to do this. So
isn't it amazing when we open up and recognize that everybody else is going through the same shit that we are?
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's so freeing.
I think we put everyone else on a pedestal thinking they have these perfect lives. And no, we're all going through this. We're all going through it together. Let's just open up and talk about it. Let's be real. So yeah, I was thrilled. He was into me. He saw something that I didn't. I was living this small life, and he saw my athletic ability, and he was coaching me through triathlons. He coached me through an Ironman. He got me to World's Championship in Cozumel. Like I would have never in a million years ever attempted anything like that. And he's like, you can do this. You just got to break it down. You can do this. And then running that Ironman was like, holy shit, I can. If I can do this, I can do anything. Because that was really freaking hard. And then he was my biggest cheerleader in my career too. I mean, he's like, you're one of the smartest women I've ever met. Why the hell are you working 3 jobs? Why are you running dogs? He said, you should be running a company or at least your own department. And I was like, I don't know what you mean. Like that's not me. That's not me. And he's like, no, this is you. It's in you. You've got to find it. Yeah. And so he has always been my biggest cheerleader and pushing me. And I love that about him. Yeah. So 3 years into dating, we start planning on getting married, and we start creating vision boards for what we want for our life, creating that alignment. And on a trip out to Utah, we end up driving through Colorado a couple times. And I was like, back when I was in my late 30s and I had gone through a divorce, I was really playing with the idea of just like moving out here for 6 months, just to shake it up, just to do something different and try it, put my house up for rent, something like that. And he's like, I wanted to come out here when I was young and train with all the pro athletes. And I wanted to move here, but it just wasn't in the cards when he was married before either. And he said, well, what's holding you back? And I said, well, you silly, like we're planning to get married. And he said, well, what if I said I'm interested? What if I said I want to try it? And we made the decision then and there. And we just started making trips out here. We made this huge vision board that was about a 2-year span of how long we thought it would take us to get here and all the steps that we wanted and how much money we thought we had. And we ended up going out on a limb and not having half of it and still doing it. And it was scary, but that's also very freeing. It's like, I'm going to jump over this crevasse and I don't know if I'm going to land hard or if I'm going to run when I get to the other side, but I'm going to do it anyways. And so we jumped the crevasse, and we ended up moving out here and took the plunge and said, this is what we want to do for our life. This is where we want to be. We really want to align on this. And we did it. That's exciting. I mean, I get excited talking about that. So,
well, and it's great that you do talk about it, because other people that are going to hear that story, it's going to inspire them to want to do something similar, right? Because it's funny. I talk about this a lot with my friends, but so many people sit there at home and they wait for that next season of a reality show to come out so they can sit and binge watch it. And then they're vicariously living through other people and not getting off their couch and living their own lives. And it doesn't mean they have to do crazy adventure things, but oh my God, if there's something you want to do, go try it. Who cares if it works or not, right?
I feel like, life is a journey. You find your way eventually. I mean, you might take a few forks in the road and travel, and you learn from those experiences. But if you don't have those experiences, you're going to wish you did. Yeah. So you're always going to wonder what if, and I never want to wonder what if. Yeah. So, and I think the beautiful thing is, my kids were like, do it, Mom. Like, my son was ready to go to Grand Valley. My daughter had just graduated college. And they're like, we're going to come visit. And then in a few years, we're going to come follow you. And so they really encouraged us, where a lot of our family and friends were like, what are you doing? Everyone is here. Like, this is your home. And we're like, is it our home? Is it really where we belong? Do we feel like we're living our best life here, or do we feel a little stifled? And it was a lot to weigh. It's hard when you have that much, kind of pulling you backwards. And they're people you love and they have good intentions, but it's also not their life. Right. So we listened to the kids. And we went for it. And then I ended up finding my job through a mutual friend. He's from Michigan. He met Adriano for lunch. He has ski buddies back in Michigan, and he had moved out here when he was in college. And he's like, well, what does your wife do? And he's like, well, she's, like a marketing director. And they're like, hey, I think we're looking for one at our company. And that's literally how I got my job here.
Oh, that's
So
perfect.
it's all. And so I started at the company I'm with 3 years, a little over 3 years ago, as a manager, moved up to director, and then moved up to vice president of marketing a few months ago.
That's great.
So it's exciting. And he's working for Adriano's working for Colorado University. He's in a spot, where he feels like he's in the last leg of his career. And he's in a wonderful place. He's faculty at a university. What a great place to share your knowledge. And I think that's just an amazing place for him to be.
Yeah.
My daughter's moving out here in October, and then my son is planning on moving next year in March. So
Awesome. So they're living up to their word.
They're living up to their words. They're excited to come. And I just say, we're here because of that first 14,000 foot mountain that I added to my bucket list. So you just never know. You never know where you're going to end up.
I think about I have 5 kids, and just so you know, Amanda and I were both very young parents as well. So I understand that baggage that you drag, and it's not really baggage except for the social judgment that we all subject ourselves to, right? And the funny thing is all of the things that we think people are probably saying or thinking behind our backs, they're probably not, because they're worried about what we're saying behind their backs.
Yes.
But when you're
thinking about us as much as we think they are.
I know we're all like, we want to be narcissists, we want people to care about us, and they don't give a shit. But the nice thing about kids is, it's funny because regardless of the job that we do, it's like we have our own little heroes, or we're their heroes, and they really do admire us and watch the way that we do things, and
Yes.
And it's great to have them as cheerleaders, because sometimes it's really hard to imagine that you have any cheerleaders out there at all, right?
It is. They're always there. Yes.
So what does the concept of a Gen X reboot mean to you, and how does it relate? I mean, it seems like a silly question to ask, because I think you already said it, but how does it relate to where you are in life right at this particular moment?
Yeah, you bet. I would say a Gen X reboot, it's taking a really good hard look at your life, like up to the point you're at, and asking yourself, like, am I in the place I want to be physically, spiritually, emotionally? Am I living in the right place? Am I spending time with the people that I love? And is the circle encouraging me to live my best life? Am I finding purpose and meaning in my work and my interactions every day? Am I healthy in my mind and in my body? Would I want my children to live the life that I'm living right now? And I would say yes, I would want them to live that. But if I answered no to any of those questions, then I think it's time for a reboot. Life is so complex. It has all these successes and mistakes and celebration and growth, and I have all of those in my story. And so I just often ask myself, like, is my life telling a story that I'm proud of? Is it one that feels inspirational? Is it inspirational to me? Is it purposeful? So yeah, I feel like where I'm at so far, I've done that, but then I'm always wondering, like, okay, well, what's next? Not that I'm not loving the present moment, but I feel like in the current stage of my life, I'm actually not getting simpler. I'm looking for expansion, like into some arenas that I haven't played. I started writing a memoir over COVID. And so I've been writing that for 2 years now, going through my 3rd pass on editing, and then I'm going to see if I can get it published. I also have several other stories I want to write. Started blogging, creating another vision board for our next stage of life. Something Adriano and I are both very passionate about is we want to retire with a retreat center in Colorado. So we want to bring more people out into the experiences that we've had and give that to them, because we've just loved it so much.
Well, let me know when you open that up, because
absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds like a great place to check out. I love Colorado. Again, like, but getting on top of a 14er and knowing that you climbed there. I took the Cog Railway up there and it was overwhelming. But so I can't even imagine climbing up that thing, but oh my goodness.
I would say it's life-changing for most people.
Yeah.
Anyone that has experienced that for the first time, and I've got to watch them and see tears in their eyes, it's incredible.
So anything else that you'd like to share as we kind of wrap up? I've really enjoyed getting to know you. I obviously had no idea. I met you in an interview, bumped into you at a street corner where you and your husband were working out. And
Yeah.
here we are. And it sounds like there's a lot of awesomeness and cool twists and turns in between.
There are, life is interesting. I continue to learn and challenge myself. I'm also taking some courses to become a certified life coach and professional development coach, and so I'm teaching some leadership courses at work, and that's fun, helping others find their career paths. And I feel like I'm learning so much from the Gen Zers and millennials, so they keep me on my toes as well. And I really enjoy that. But I just feel like I would tell everyone, there's so much freedom and choice and expression. Like, go after it. I really love the quote, just as we can know the ocean because it always tastes like salt, we can recognize enlightenment because it tastes like freedom. And freedom is so light, it's not heavy. So I can always tell when I'm tracking in the right direction because it gets me excited and it feels light and it feels purposeful.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a really good way to boil it down because it is a complex. Like I noticed that even anytime I try to do anything, because I have all these negative voices of self-doubt and all that stuff. But I always say, like, who cares? Who cares if you do this and nobody likes it? Because if you wanted to do it, do it. And if you find yourself doing something and you're excited and feeling light, it's probably what you should be doing.
Yeah, you should really, you should really look into that part.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I'm sure everybody enjoyed getting to hear your story, and you should consider coming on up if you're going to be in Michigan around, I think it's June 17th. Actually, I know it's June 17th. We're doing a fire walk, and we're going to have a really cool event. So we'll put more information out there about that.
That sounds amazing. Thank you, Pete. Appreciate it.
All right. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
This concludes another episode of the Gen X Reboot interview series. A huge thank you to Jolene for sharing her story, insights, and advice with our community. I hope you enjoyed this conversation and feel inspired to continue exploring your own personal growth journey. Remember, if you want to connect with like-minded Gen Xers, join our Facebook group and be part of our supportive community where we share experiences, engage in meaningful conversations, and empower each other to live our best lives. Until next time, keep growing, learning, and embracing the unique experiences that make us the amazing Gen X community we are. Thank you.